Dear diarrhea, diarrhea full of shit. Just play along with myself and I. No one else. Here you go. I'm so legit. I'm gonna fire this off real quick. Mamma mia, pizzeria, pizza pie, oh my. I don't have anything to say, so I figured I'd say some shit. It's Friday. I think I might take a shower and actually, like, wash my armpits and my ass and whatnot. Really scrub my hair. Use Q-tips and, brush my teeth. Put on deodorant. And go out to some goth club down in the big city and get some action. So, I don't know what that's going to look like or consist of. I'm just going to show up, see what happens. Normally, I would just, like, Netflix and chill, but I don't know. I'm feeling pretty frisky tonight. Anyway, rain makes corn, corn makes whiskey, whiskey makes my baby get a little frisky or something like that. Got a new subscriber. Might be legit. Who knows? I stumbled across some. Well, I don't fucking do all day. Yeah, I guess. Anyway, don't be matterings. Because it's the same shit it always is. You know what I mean? It's always somebody who's got, a channel that's, 1 to, like 4 years old. They have 1 to, 7 subscribers. One video that's not theirs. There was this one like fat chick who had fat fingers, and she posted pictures of her fat kid, her fat son. So stupid. Get a fucking life. You know what I mean? But it's just bad. Oh, he's my precious little angel boy. No, he's just a fat kid. Happy little accident. Just you're nothing special. You know. The kid's gonna grow up to be a fucking putz. Doesn't stand a shot with a fucking dumbass shitbag single mommy. Like her. Just fucking that poor kid. I mean, fuck you. But the kid didn't ask for it. And I'm sure the kid loves his mommy. Like I said, when you're a little baby, and a young kid, your parents are like gods. You know, and even if they're the worst fucking parents in the world, they're abusive and shit. It's like you're born into it. You don't know. You don't find out until you're like, 12, 13, 14 years old that there's other ways of living. Because it's kind of, you just don't have the comprehension. Even if you're aware of that stuff, you go over, you figure, you don't start, what's that? There's a word for it. Critical thinking skills, perhaps? I don't know. People talk shit about it. But they also talk shit about like emotional intelligence or whatever, something like that. It's like, no, that's a thing, because the guy I'm working with now, we work very well together. And the boss even said, he came over, he's like, God damn, this is the best this place has looked in a long time, and stuff like that. Just what we're doing as far as the material, and keeping a place clean and reorganize things, and just the whole concept of shooting off ideas and offer solutions, not problems, and everybody's on board. Like I said, there's only like 6 of it. It's actually a small. Yeah, there's 2 people in the office. The boss man, which isn't really, he does a lot of like sales stuff. There's 1 truck driver at that location. But like I said, they have other locations and they do all different types of work. Which is going to be neat for me down the road, if they need to like fill in or do this, that, or the other, because I'm still the new guy, right? This is like week 4 for me. But once I'm up and running, it's like, oh, you need me to go over there and do this? Oh, you need me to go over there and do that? Oh, they need a loader operator over there. Oh, they need a truck driver for a day over there. Oh, okay. Whatever. This guy needs to do this. Okay, I'll jump. Everybody kind of. That's like the idea, is everybody can do everybody else's job. Like the guy who runs the plant, who's like kind of the plant mechanic / operator dude. Well, he knows how to, run a loader and load trucks. So I think that's pretty cool. Next week, I'm going to start, quote unquote, training, just getting familiar and efficient in the loader. I can't, officially, get hired on as that position until I'm off probation. Because if something happened, then it'd be like shit, like if I dinged a truck or something, while loading it. But yeah, I've been watching and learning and paying attention to the tonnage and just sort of. I was kind of playing catch up with that first motherfucker, who didn't communicate, and I didn't really know what was going on. But now, within the first week of working with this other dude, it's like, this is going to be a nice transition. And like I said, I'm going to miss, actually, working on the ground, and I'll be doing it for a couple more months. For some reason, I like it. It's I don't know. I don't know why. Like I said, it's pretty physical. A lot of kind of hustling. Like whenever I need to go over here and do this, I'm either walking fast or jogging. The shoveling and the jamming the sand, down in the thing, and I make it a point to use, alternate hands and whatnot. If I'm shoveling, I'll do it this way, do it that way, That way I'm getting equal, work on my shoulders, biceps, and triceps. And my forearms, just gripping and moving and all that stuff. And the chest, because like I said, when I stab that shovel down in there or whatever I happen to be doing. This is a pretty physical, it's not like super physically demanding. Plus, I'm a fucking machine. I mean, I pace myself and like I said, I've noticed, like I said, my body responds well, testosterone levels of, fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex. Just ignore the little arms. Can I pick something else? A bull. Dozer. But anyway, so that, like I said, I just sort of pay attention to stuff. It's like when I first started, it's like, my shoulder's kind of getting a little bit tired. And now I'm just like, bam, 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 and just, it is what it is. And I mean that humbly. I know it sounds like, I'm a fuckboy here, but dude, I shovel so fast. I'm so fucking strong and shit. Well, whatever, hater. But, that's just something that I notice. It's like, all right, I'll be damned. Because that's how I would do things, you know what I mean? Like, when, are you working out? Yes. But, like it only took me about a month, to crank it up another 10 pounds, regularly. And then I'd do the heavy and the light, the 100 reps, 15 pounds, 7 reps, 45 pounds, and then the regular, 20 of the 35 pounds, whatever. But, most people, when they do that, they like hype themselves up. And I'm kind of like the opposite. You stay steady with it, and then you progress. And then, like I said, about a month, boom, I'm 10 pounds up on the regular. Another month, boom, 10 pounds up on the regular. So, I don't remember how long it took me to build up to do 60 push-ups, no rest. And I know that sounds pathetic, but look it up. your online family friends. Haters. You know, that's like a lot, apparently, because I just cranked it out on a whim, you know. And if there were other people looking, I probably could have cranked out another 10 more. But, you know, like I said, give me a month, you know, and I'll give you 100 push-ups. And I know Farkles is waiting for that glorious day. You know. Yeah. I'm just sort of making that up. I think she has a fetish for that. So we'll get together. I'll do push-ups with her on my back. She'll just be like, yeah, you know, just, you're a silly girl. But you're all hot and horny. But, anyway. And then we'll give her the assertive love making. Like Teddy Popipity used to say, did you give her the 10 dick or the 7 dick? You know, we won't give her the 10 dick. But we're going to give her the 10 experience, not just the 10 dick. So the physical, you know, action of the old in and outs, you know. Because chicks are big on that mental shit. I mean, so are dudes too, but not as much, you know. Like I said, dudes beat off to porn, you know, tits and ass, TNA. You know, that's how they get the rocks off. Women, quote unquote, you know, pleasure. Well, like I said, it's taboo for chicks to masturbate. But it is? Yeah, it is. But you know, what gets them going is like, you know, the werewolf and the Harlequin romance novels or whatever. It's been proven. What's his name? Jordan Peterson, you know. I forget what they are, but there's like 7 different things. Werewolf, vampire, pirate, doctor, seems like there were some other ones. But yeah, and the whole bad boy, you know, treats everybody else like shit, but treats her nice. Someone she can tame, someone who's dangerous, but can also change diapers. Sigma. Alphas are so overrated, especially now that that's floating around the internet, you know, and everybody's aware of that shit, you know, bitches are crazy. Simp boys, you know, and ain't nobody dating and all that stuff. This is all making the rounds. So, like I said, and this is me talking, I didn't hear this anywhere, but alphas have a shelf life. They eventually, you know, they're kind of needy, you know, and eventually they just become kind of nobodies. Sigmas live forever. Because they just don't care, they don't, you know what I'm saying? I would consider myself a Sigma. Just not, you know, all that stupid shit. But, yeah, technically, yeah. Definitely not alpha. You know, because people are like drawn to alphas. Well, I guess they can be drawn to sigmas too, I guess. And then there's the opposites. The alpha, the opposite, it would be a beta, sigma. I forget what the opposite is. But anyway. Yeah. So, Mrs. Butthead. She comes up every now and then. I'm thinking about that dude that, you know, because she's just, you know. So, what do you think the Gweed is? You think he's an alpha or a sigma? He's definitely one of the two. He could be sigma. But Puss Boy, yeah, he's definitely like, you know, I'd say he's beta. You know, I'd have to look it up, but anyway. But Mrs. Butthead didn't care. You know, it was a peanut wiener attached to a real live flesh and blood boy who could pick her up on a Friday night and take her out, pay for her food and her gas, and get her out the house, fed, fucked, and entertained. So like I said, now that she's with the queen, and the troll, literal troll. No, well, both. I think his mom must have been a troll and his dad was a leprechaun. Oh, things that make me go, Buh. But every time, and I don't mean this in a weird way, because I'm special, the rules get applied to me, don't actually apply to me. So every time I rolled up to that guard shack and I saw that little dude, I just thought, oh my God. What the fuck? So she made it now. So she's on the list until I see that belly, and I suspect that'll be showing up pretty soon here because they're still doing like the newlywed thing. She didn't show no wedding pictures, but that's not really her style. Oh, you know her style, do you? Yeah, I do actually. I know everybody's style. But anyway, and then she's off the list because then it's just weird. As right now, it's like I said, you're on the list until you're not. But yeah. Started raining really hard yesterday. Another fuck up came home soaking wet. Instead of checking the weather and having an idea what it was going to do, I just waited till the sky got dark. And then even then, I'm like, well, it just didn't occur to me, right? Well, it did, but I kind of got a go mentality as far as making material and stuff goes. But yeah, he had the loader had to load trucks, and the wind started blowing, and there's one pile of material that we need to keep from getting wet. So I'm out there. The winds. Well, first it was blowing super like dust out, white out. So I'm just sitting there, waiting for it to clear. Then it stopped. So I literally ran because I knew I had about 3 minutes because that's how storms work. There's like that brief calm before it actually starts, dumping. But anyway, I'm trying to cover this, with this big, huge tarp. The wind's blowing, and I'm sitting on it and chucking pallets and sandbags over my shoulder, try to get it covered. And it's raining like, it's dumping. I'm soaking wet. And again, it was one of those moments where I thought, I could be sitting in an air-conditioned cab right now, driving to, Utah, making a few deliveries there, and then driving back, for 100,000 a year. But instead, I'm soaking wet, throwing, dilapidated, broken pallets and 65-pound sandbags over my shoulder, trying to cover this shit so it doesn't get ruined. And I was happy. So, anyway, good deal, Lucille. And I also found 5 little baby mice that were still like pink with no hair. Unfortunately, so at lunch I went and bought an eyedropper and milk and whatnot. Put them in a plastic container, put them in the shade under my car, so they wouldn't, the sun wouldn't get them. 3 of them were dead by the end of the day. 2 of them lasted 24 hours, and then 1 lasted like another 12 hours, and they all they died. They didn't make it. But they were really cute, because they're kind of like human babies, where they just lie on their back and kind of stretch out and kind of move their little legs, and they'd squeak a little bit. I tried to feed them, as much as I could with the eyedropper. Make sure they get some in them. It's cow's milk. They don't sell mice milk at the grocery store. You got to be careful to wipe it away from their snout, though, so they don't drown, in the bubble that you just put on their face. I, warmed it up to room temperature when I got home, and I'd feed them twice a day. And I soaked the paper towel in the milk, squeezed it out, put it on a plate, and I'd kind of push them up to it so they could like nurse off of it, which it seemed like the one was doing for a while, but it didn't work. They died. And I covered them up, kind of made a tent for them, you know, with a blanket. Kept them, you know, house comfortable. Didn't want to do anything that would stress them out, you know, like bright lights and whatnot. So try and kept that down to a minimum. I did everything I could. I thought it would have been cool to have like a brother and sister mouse, you know, mice, and I'd show them, you know, because that happened, you know, the one time with that mouse. But it was, you know, had fur. It was wobbly and its eyes were closed, but it still had fur, and it could like fend for itself. These stupid little critters, you know. So anyway, that's that. I guess that's kind of it. Oh shit! I'll do it. I want to say something, but I'll do it later on as a girl.